Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. Hello, and welcome to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast. This week, our guest is Jillian Andre, and I am very excited to talk to her and hear her story. So, Jillian, how about you just start off with a little introduction about who you are?
Okay, thanks for having me. I am a mother of a 7-year-old, and this is hard. Who am I? I guess in this case, I am, and always, I am a mother of a 7-year-old who went through a divorce when my daughter was 7 months old. And since then, I mean, there's a million different pieces of that, but since then, I started a support group for women going through divorces with young kids. And I also started a blog and soon to be starting a podcast really focused around moms and co-parenting. I also, in the meantime, since my divorce, have lost over 200 pounds and got my MBA. I just graduated in May. So I feel like
Congratulations.
thank you. So I have a lot of exciting things coming up. I'm really passionate about co-parenting and moms, basically because of where I've been and where I am now.
Yeah. I can't wait to hear how
Yeah.
you went from there to here. Yeah, those are like an MBA. For what I know from people who've done it is really, really hard.
Yeah, it was
So
hard,
well
but fun.
done.
Thank you.
And yeah, losing 200 pounds is, I can't even imagine, most of us struggle with losing, 20 pounds. So
Yeah, it's
that's,
definitely.
yeah, unimaginable.
Mhm.
So, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Uh, why don't you start by telling us uh, what was going on in your life when you were in your deepest, darkest place and thought that maybe you didn't want to be here anymore? What led to that, other than just, general depression, which most of us on the
Oh,
podcast are dealing with, but there's
right.
usually
Of course.
extenuating circumstances that kind of push us over the edge.
Yeah. Um, so it's like already making me feel like I'm gonna tear up.
That's
Um,
okay.
yeah. So 7 years, like I just said, 7 years ago, I had a 7-month-old baby and I was married. I had been with my husband since I was in high school, and he um, decided that he wanted to get a divorce. And he was going through his own stuff. And it really threw me into a really, really deep depression because it felt like I have put my whole life into this person.
Mm-hmm.
We had trouble starting a family. We were able to have our daughter. And then 7 months into this, with our whole lives intertwined and our whole lives before, I mean, I had never known anyone else besides him, like in a relationship,
Yeah.
and had really felt like I had lost everything. I would say there was a specific night that I can remember, um, that I don't share often. I have shared it with a couple like close people, but I would say it's my bottom night, I would say. It's
Mm-hmm.
the night that I knew that it was more than just being sad. It was more than just
Right.
being upset. It was the place where I was like, I don't think I'm gonna make it. I don't think I'm gonna survive this. And I am so dark right now and so down, and I cannot reach out. And what I ended up doing, I like can picture it. I was laying in my bed upside down. I don't know why. And I picked up the phone and I called a suicide hotline and I have amazing family and amazing friends and a humongous support network of close people, but I couldn't talk to them.
Yeah.
So I Googled a suicide hotline and I called and I talked to that person for a really long time. And I almost don't even remember what we were talking about. Um, but we just talked and kind of got me back to the place where I think any times I've been that dark, that was definitely the darkest. But any times I just keep remembering that I have to be here for my daughter. And so, like, for me, my daughter kept me alive that night.
Yeah. Yeah. And those of us that have kids can relate. That's also
Mhm.
what kept me here was my kids. I couldn't leave them no
Right.
matter how bad it got for me, even though, you know, I also struggled with that. Am I even any use as a parent in this state? Like,
Mhm.
but I knew that at some point I wouldn't always feel that way. And,
Right.
you know,
And it was also, I
I
mean,
could still um be here for them. Being here even in my worst day was better than not being here.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, having a 7-month-old when I was in that spot was kind of like a blessing in certain ways, because like she wasn't at the point where like she's asking me like, you look sad, you're crying, like she's 7 months old. So,
Yeah.
but there were the things that I have to do. I have to get up and get her out of bed. I have to feed her. I have to, all that stuff that I had to do, which just like I had to do. I didn't
Hmm.
have a choice, or I didn't feel like I had a choice otherwise. So
Yeah.
it kept me
It keeps you
going.
in the present.
Right. Because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because keeping her alive and well kept you
right.
alive and well. Yeah.
Or alive, anyways.
Yes. And functioning, alive
Right.
and functioning.
Yes.
Yes. Um, I wanted to go back to you calling this suicide hotline because you're the first person that I've spoken to on the podcast who's actually done that.
Yeah.
Um, so obviously you knew something like that existed
Yeah.
so that you could Google it, which is amazing.
Mhm.
And for our listeners, I always put that information in the description of every podcast,
Mhm.
so that it's there for people. Um, but can you just tell us a little bit more about, I know you said it, you know, your memory is a little foggy, but
Yeah.
what happens when you call the suicide
So,
hotline?
yeah, I
There's
can give
just
you,
somebody to talk to and you just
yeah. And really,
talk.
I just kind of, as far as I remember, so I mean, there's things I don't remember exactly what happened, but, you know, you're just able to talk to whoever answers the phone. And it feels like, um, I don't know, like when you're reaching out, like I said, I have a great support network and I always have. Um, but like when you're reaching out to your family or your friends, it's harder. I think in that moment for me, it just felt like I just needed to talk to someone who had no skin in the game,
Right.
who just had no idea, and I could just talk.
Hmm.
And they really, as far like my memory of it is really they just listened and sort of validated my feelings,
Hmm.
um and didn't like judge me, or and not that my family or whatever would have, but it was just a totally separate
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
It was helpful. It was definitely helpful in that it felt like it got me through that short period of time where it was a strong consideration that I wasn't able to make it to the next day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's all we need. And, you know, like the reason for this podcast is to feel less alone
Hmm.
and to know that there are people in the world who understand what you're feeling and what you're going through. And I guess that's the benefit of the hotline, is that those people get it.
Right.
Right? And
Oh, for sure.
you don't have to try to explain why you're feeling what you're feeling.
Right.
You just are, and they're like,
Yeah.
I
And you
got
can just
you.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was definitely a hard place, but I think that definitely helped me a lot
Yeah.
just to
Amazing.
get through that night. And then, you know, it was a lot of work after that night too. Um,
Yes.
but it was, there's certain moments that you just need to get through, and
Mm-hmm.
that helped me get through.
Right. So what were those things that helped you get through after that night? Because,
Right.
you got through the crisis,
Yeah.
but
So
then there's more, obviously, afterwards. There's
right.
the day-to-day where we're crawling out of the pit of
Right.
despair.
Well, I call the actual they may have even told me that, because I don't know if I didn't know this, or like I never thought to call my doctor when I was going
Mm,
through a divorce. Like it was like, that's not like a medical thing. I don't have like ear
yeah.
infection. Why would I call
Right.
my PCP or whatever? And they're like, no, you need to call your doctor because you need either to get on meds or to have them help you set up therapy and that
Oh,
type of stuff.
okay.
So I was able to do that and just start getting some resources.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think it took a couple months of pretty darkness, and then I started slowly digging out of it. And how I did that, which I think is different for everyone, but like first I took things I needed to do. Like because I was getting divorced, we needed to get out of the house we were in. We were selling the house, and I couldn't afford it without him,
Right.
and he didn't want it. So I was like, I need to get out of this house. That is, so I had to like put a goal in front of me at all times. And
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning of it, it was literally at the very beginning, it was like, get up, make sure my daughter's fed, make sure, she's taken care of. And
Yeah.
then, and then bigger goals were like, okay, I need to get out of this house. So now I need to, which is so easy to do with two German Shepherds and a chocolate lab and a 7-month-old baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like insane. So I had to like, get the house in order, get an agent, sell the house, all that stuff, figure out where I'm moving, buy a new house, like
Yeah.
was but so that was like really helpful for me to like have a goal in front of me, and it was a need goal at that point. It was
Yeah.
like a survival goal, like I need to do this.
I
So
need
this
somewhere to live.
yeah, right. So um that's been helpful. And I think that so since then, and I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself, but since then I think that's a strategy I've learned from that experience, in that like I'm always putting a next goal, which I mean, I've always had goals, right? But it's like, okay, I have this goal, and then I have these like need goals. Like I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do laundry, blah, blah, blah. But like I want to get my MBA. I want to get my education because now I want to be able to take care of my daughter the way I want to.
Yeah.
So first I had to finish my bachelor's degree.
Right.
So, so it's like one thing at a time. It's like I always have to have a next thing, or I have to, really look at where I want to go, and then what the next step of that is.
Right. And always be working towards
Yeah,
something.
right.
Yeah. Instead of
And that's
just existing.
right. Exactly.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Okay. So you got out, you got through your crisis. You
Hmm.
needed to find a place to live.
Yeah,
Um, and you did that. So it was just putting one foot in front of the other every day.
literally.
Um,
And
and
it got
having a way to measure your success.
yes. Yeah, so important for me. Like, and I think also something that I've learned, and this actually like sounds like so like obvious, but I don't know why it took me so long to learn this, is like celebrating those things. Like even like
Yes.
even like saying like I lost 200 pounds, like I know that like in theory that's amazing, right? But
Yeah.
like it feels like, oh, like okay, shut up
It's just
about it.
something I did, right?
Yeah, right. And it's like, well, that's pretty awesome. Like, and
Yeah, it is.
as you like accomplish these things or whatever, you start to like gain confidence in yourself and like not even just the weight, but just like who I am from 7 years ago to now is like a different world
Yeah.
in every way, not just like physically.
hmm And I
And
think particularly as women, we're pretty bad at celebrating our
mhm,
ourselves and what
mhm,
our accomplishments.
mhm,
Because I think it's partly because we just always have so much stuff going on.
right,
We don't have or we don't make the time to just pause for a minute and be
right,
like, I just did that.
right.
Like,
Oh, so true.
because we're always like, okay, done next, right?
Right.
You know, like
Absolutely.
Ariana Grande, thank you next, you know,
Yes,
like
right.
good. But yeah, just pausing and looking at ourselves and being like, hell yeah,
Right.
I just did that thing.
Just did that. Yeah.
Like,
And
I'm
yeah,
amazing.
right.
And then move on to the next
Right.
thing.
And then like this is a cool victory that I had. I during my MBA program, there was a case competition at Boston University that was for all the Boston schools, but it was the second biggest competition in the US.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, that looks hard. And I was like, I'm gonna start a team. So I picked all of my people that I knew were smarter than me because I'm smart. I know that. And
Obviously.
we won.
Oh
We
my
beat
gosh.
50 teams and we won $50,000.
What?
And we like represented for our school. Like they talked about us at graduation. Like, yeah. So it's
Wow.
also like the old me would have said, don't try it because you could fail, right?
hmm
You might not win.
hmm
It might be embarrassing. It might be hard to talk about. It might be whatever.
hmm
But
It's
like I
very
was
comfortable here where I am without trying.
exactly. And then
hmm
that's what I this is what I always say to my therapist. Like, I want to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And she's like,
Yeah.
that's not a thing. You can't do that. The whole
No,
point of
but
growth is that it's uncomfortable. I'm like, I know. But
the more you put yourself in uncomfortable situations on purpose,
mhm,
you know, the more you know, maybe never get comfortable with it, but I think you train yourself to know that it's not the end of the world, that
right,
being uncomfortable is fine and you'll be fine at the end of it. Like
right.
it's just a phase.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's part of like you can recognize that it's part of your growth
Yeah,
in a different way.
right. So with the weight loss, like 200 pounds is like a huge goal. Like, did you have then like
So
smaller
I
goals
so I
throughout?
have been overweight my entire life. Like since I was 10 years old, I remember being like very overweight. I was on the day I had surgery. I had bariatric surgery, but it
Okay.
took me 18 months to get to that point. Because when the first day when I walked into that one of my goals when I got divorced was to have surgery, which we'll talk about more because it sounds like I had tried literally everything else. It wasn't like
hmm
I was like never tried anything and ate like crap and
Yeah.
walked into a surgeon. I
Yeah.
worked
I
really, really
feel
hard.
like that is always a sort of
Yeah.
last resort. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And even my doctor was like, typically you'll lose around 100 pounds. Like the goal was not, or his goal, or the outside goal was not to lose over 200 pounds. But my goal was because I
Okay.
just wanted to conquer this. I wanted to feel better
hmm
physically. I was in so much pain. Like,
Mm,
I remember when I was helping my daughter learn to walk, that like back breaking time. I would go to the chiropractor like every day because it was so hard and so painful to try to help her just learn to walk.
right.
And I wanted to be able to do stuff with her. So I had bariatric surgery. I had the sleeve in 2019. So I'm a little bit over 4 years out.
Okay.
That's how I did it. And it's been, for me, the most amazing tool ever. I can definitely, after 4 years, have been able to, like, I can definitely eat more now. I'm very strict how I eat. Um, just because I get very easily triggered by food and that
Mm-hmm.
type of stuff. So I know myself really well because I have dieted my whole life.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the thing I love so much about the surgery for me is that I never feel like I have to diet. It's more like being mindful of how I'm eating because the tool that I have now helps me feel full.
Right. Right. Huh. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I like that. But you said there were like a year and a half that
Yeah.
before getting the surgery. So what were you
So
doing in
in
that
that,
time?
yeah, what was I doing? Well, I was moving. I was honestly, I think at that point, and I always sort of use this reference for like when you're going through a divorce. For me, like if somebody said like, "How long does it take to heal?" and I'm putting it in parentheses, not that you can see it if we're not recording it video, but that it takes 2 years just to come out of it. Like, and that's what I've noticed, like from the support group that I run and stuff, is like when
Mhm.
people come in to when they start to like feel who they are is about 2 years,
Huh,
give or take.
interesting.
I mean, everybody's different, but
Mhm.
um, so I would say within that 2 years, I just really had to spend time like healing.
Healing and figuring out who you are as an
Exactly what
independent
I wanted
person.
to be. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, there were so many points where like the first time my ex took my daughter for a visit,
Mhm.
I laid in bed and cried the whole time. And then the next time he took her, I laid in bed and cried the whole time. And then maybe a month into it, I said, okay, I need to make a decision because like her father and he's safe for her. And I know that. Um, So I can either like lay in bed crying for the next 20 years when he goes with her, or I can like get up and get something done, or go meet a friend for a coffee, or do something that's more productive. But I think, needed a little bit of time to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
would say the first couple, like until my surgery, was really just recovering, like emotionally and
Yeah.
really trying to figure out where I wanted to go next.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I mean, it's just your story is amazing from being so down and so low and not thinking you were going to make it through
Mhm.
to just deciding that yes, I am because I have a reason. I have this child. But whatever the reason,
Right.
deciding, and then like all of these little goals that you just continued to set for yourself. To even just deciding I'm not going to cry the next time, baby goes with daddy.
And to be
That
fair, now that she's 7, when he's coming to pick her up, I'm like, her bags are packed. I'm ready.
oh yes, but as a tiny baby, it's a lot
No, yeah,
harder
it's
to
totally
let
different.
go
And
than
like, I know she's safe and she loves to go to her dad's. And,
when
uh,
they're more, people
well, and you're
and
further out.
and busier and
Yeah. And I'm further out. Like, it was
yes.
a much, much different place then.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's just such a good lesson. Like even for people who are not struggling with suicidal ideation, to just and you hear it a lot, goal setting and
No,
whatever. I'm the way my brain works, goals generally don't work for me.
mhm.
Um, but they do for a lot of people. But even just not even just like a 5-year plan sort of goal,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be anything like big or gigantic, like, you know you decided you were getting an MBA, which is like a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
But even just deciding, I'm not going to cry
Right.
next time,
Right.
or, what am I going to do tomorrow? What goal can I put in place, even just for my emotional self?
Right.
You
100. I
know,
mean, and honestly, like, and I say this often and think about this a lot because I think there is a difference between a survival goal and like a thriving goal. And you need the survival goals first. Like,
yes.
and sometimes you end up back there for whatever reason. Something gets triggered or something big happens again. And then, but I feel like for me, now that I've gone through what I felt like was a very traumatic situation, um, now I have that tool. Like I know for me that works. I agree with you though about the goal setting. Like, of course, I'm like a business student, so they're like, just finished business school, so we love like SMART goals and all these goals and
Yeah.
stuff. But I think some of those like things are a little bit too much for me personally. But it's like for me, it's more thinking about like, okay, what do I want next? Whatever that is, whether it's to get up and not cry or to get an MBA, and then like, how am I going to get there? But more like one step at a time. And that seems to work for me
Mm-hmm.
to get
And
through.
right. So for me, setting a goal that's like doing a thing doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I set a goal about how I want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
that works for me. So if my goal is, I want to feel happy, I want to feel content, I want to feel productive, I
Yep.
want to feel, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, okay, what do I have to do in order to feel that way?
Oh, I love
So
that.
that's what drives me
Yeah.
is the feeling, is not feeling, depressed and worthless and hopeless
Yes.
and
I
all of
do.
those
I
things.
actually do that now that you're saying that. Like I do that, especially mostly with productive.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like thinking about like during COVID when we were like locked down with little kids and all that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm like need to just feel productive right now. So what can I do to make me? It's like, okay, well maybe if I fold this laundry that's right here, I'll feel better.
Yeah.
So I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah. And it
I
can be
like,
as simple as that, as folding the
yeah,
laundry. It doesn't have to be, going back to school or making $1 million or whatever.
that's
It
my next
can,
goal. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah. But like, what can I do today to make myself feel good? Well, I can drink water and I can fold the laundry and I
Yeah,
can tidy up the kitchen,
right.
unload the dishwasher or,
Yeah,
just those little things. But if you keep doing those little things, then suddenly your house looks great and you feel better.
yeah,
And so, yeah, that's kind of how I twist things or perspectivize things,
yeah. No, I love that.
in order. So it's not just a doing goal, because that can feel overwhelming to me.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. So, yeah. So you're obviously in a really good place now, and we've talked a lot about what got you there and what keeps you going. Is there any other last piece of advice you would like to give people who are maybe in that crisis moment or close to it, or just
Yeah.
coming out of it?
Um, I think the biggest, like, if I was talking to someone right now that was in that moment I was in, I would
Which you
say,
are.
yeah, I would say, um, I would say that I, I would want them to understand that they're not alone, that I have been there, and that I am literally nothing special. Like, I am a mom, I'm like middle of the road, nothing, and I could do this. I could get through this, and they like are going to be able to get through this.
Right. If you can do it, anybody can do it.
Literally. Like I mean that's like putting myself down, but
Oh,
it's I don't feel like like I'm not a keynote speaker. I haven't, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And I got through it. And I feel like since that day to now and on the way has been like such a incredible journey. Like, I don't want them to not have that
Mm, yeah. Yeah.
because they
Coach,
can't.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your stories and your wins and your accomplishments and your hope um, to all of our listeners.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you are valuable, you are meant for more, and that it really does get better. If you are in crisis, there are numbers that you can call or text to get the help that you need. That information for Canada and the US is in the description below each episode. If you are in immediate crisis, please call 911. We love you, and I hope you'll listen again.